So let's just take a few moments to, begin to actually arrive, just to let go of all the background murmur and chatter and preoccupation and concern, and just to fall into the flow of your body, relax into the flow of your mind. And just let whatever energies you are feeling, even energies that we don't need to particularly name, just let them begin to blend in with your breathing. Let your breath consciously relax. And we'll just open up the space. Our yoga and stillness, our yoga and silence are really the same thing. So we'll just take a moment to open up this sacramental container of stillness and silence. And now the meditation of yoga. So I would like you to begin, please, by just finding yourself lying on the floor in as comfortable a position as possible. What I typically recommend, I'll show you that and talk about it a bit, is I just recommend typically to pad the pelvis so the tailbone isn't on the mat or the floor. Elevate the legs so the hips can relax, and put something under the neck so the upper spine. But if you have something that is more relaxing, please feel free to set yourself up in that. This is, really what distinguishes the line. There's often some misunderstanding between a restorative practice and a yin practice. A restorative practice, we come into positions, put the body for absolute comfort. We're trying to remove every thread of discomfort, and really we're more kind of layering through the brain waves into yoga nidra to let the relaxation response take over. Obviously in yin, we're using positions to let discomfort be evoked so we can explore that. So I want to start off with the energy of restorative. So if this isn't absolutely comfortable for you, something to pad the pelvis, no compression in the lower back, something to put the legs on to elevate the femurs out of the hips, and something under your neck. But if you have something that's more comfortable, like I said, feel free to place yourself in that position. And we'll be here for a little bit. I want to just sort of open kind of an exploration on feeling, really. And what I would like to suggest to begin is that it's very easy to come into a physical practice, especially one that puts a great deal of emphasis on feeling the body, and really only sort of scratching the surface of what that means and how that feels, especially when we're dealing with layers and levels of discomfort. Because what tends to happen is we tend to feel these specific points of discomfort where the body is really calling for attention. and that immediately travels up to the intellect, the mind. There's a reaction. The reaction of the mind evokes a reaction in the body. That reaction evokes another reaction in the mind, and we're at a reactive place with our initial intention of feeling the body. So I would like you just to first just relax. There's no agenda to this. There's no right or wrong. It's just to let go of this, this sort of reactive place that is often very unconscious, because we don't typically take the time to slow down enough to see what we actually mean by feeling. So your body is actually a field of feeling, in a much vaster field of feeling. And let me just explain what I mean by that. Is the physical body that you inhabit is not inhabited in any form of isolation. Yeah, and a simple example would be that you have the capacity to feel the sunshine on your skin, the wind blowing on your skin, the solidity of the earth underneath your feet, the proximity, maybe not so much these days, but the proximity of another human being when we come into closeness or embrace, just the fact of breathing in the atmosphere and exhaling back out into the atmosphere. So your body is a field of feeling, in a much vaster field of feeling. So without any intention or any specificity, I'd like you to just drop into feeling. And if your memories or your intellect, your left brain wants to begin to label, just let that relax. Just as if you went too deep in a pose and you needed to adjust and back out a little bit, you would honor that physical contraction. And let's consider the mind's need to define and label what you are feeling a form of contraction. So we're just going to relax into this body that is a field of feeling, and have a periphery awareness that this exists within a much vaster field of feeling. And then just to extend that a bit more to stay in this place of sort of vague, if you will, amorphous feeling of the body, I'd like you to see if you can find where do you stop and where does not you begin? Where does you stop? Where does not you begin? And then at the same time, really just allow this feeling presence, this feeling itself, the presence of feeling, to be somewhat enjoyable. Just the enjoyment of not having to micromanage and microanalyze what we think is happening, but to just feel the presence of feeling, to feel this vast field of feeling. And then understanding that from the perspective of yoga, this is really where we get our information. This is the discipline. This is the investigation of yoga, that we're not getting the information from an outside source. We're not even getting the information from the storehouse of knowledge that we possess that we superimpose on what we're feeling. The brilliance of yoga is that you're getting this information from feeling itself, this field of feeling that you are. Good. So with this layer of surrender, with this permission to just feel and to sort of float and to let the body feel itself and not have to be concerned or add anything, I'd like to just sort of move through the body. And just for the convenience of language, I'm going to use certain labels. But when I use these labels, you can use these maybe as a pointer, but then let's try to drop the label. Let the label get very blurry and defocused, and then see if you can just feel what the label is pointing to. And this may be something you can feel directly at a visceral sense, or it may take some just sort of creative visualization to sort of ease into these areas of the felt body that maybe are not accessible to us and maybe have become a bit stagnant or dormant. So just as we use a yoga posture to start to bring prana, flow, life force back into areas, we're doing this by simply feeling, by evoking a sense of awakening the felt sense of the body. So let's begin by bringing this feeling presence to your feet. And then there's no further instruction, but just to bring this feeling presence to your feet. Bring your feeling presence to the very tips of your fingers. How just incredibly articulate and delicate the tips of the fingers are. Really quite miraculous part of the body. So just let the flow of creative visualization and the tingling of this felt presence to drift into the tips of the fingers. Allow yourself to move into the feeling presence of the skull itself. So we talk a lot about the brain and the left and the right and all of the complexity of the brain, but it's being housed in this incredible skull, these fascial plates of the skull. So just feel that, just feel the presence of your skull and how it sets on the top of your spine, and just the beauty and the depth of this presence of your body. Allow your feeling presence to drift into your reproductive organs. Allow your felt sense and your visualization to move into the organs of the torso. And particularly when you inhale and the presence of the diaphragm is compressing a bit into these torso organs. And again, not to dissect this, but just to simply cultivate a felt sense of the beauty of this movement. Allow the awareness of your felt sense to move into your jaw, relaxing the teeth from top to bottom and the tongue. The relationship between anything you're feeling in the jaw and the immediate connection into the throat. And then let's go into the labyrinth of the inner ear and just allow your felt presence to move into your eardrum, the tympanic membrane. So this is such a profound barrier where the frequency and pure sound enters into your body and then somehow transforms into imagery. And then let's just open up a bit from this field of feeling that the body is to this vaster field of feeling. So what I would like you to do is just feel the micro, just feel the specificity and the incredible nuance of all of the feelings that are pulsing and vibrating throughout what you're calling the body. And then allow that to just expand into the macro, whatever that means for you. It could be a bumblebee or the sky. It could be anything. But just allow this to happen. No need to figure this out, but just feel the micro of your own personal vibratory nature, your vast field of feeling, and then feel the macro. And I invited you earlier to see if you could see where do you stop and where does not you begin. So we can shift that a bit and see if you can feel where does the micro stop and where does the macro begin. And I just want to remind us, and mostly because I've been reminding myself lately, what an incredible gift this is to simply be able to feel directly, feel your own presence. And why this is such a gift is because as we, as we deal with collected traumas and as we deal with the complexities of life and the stress of life, it can allow us to sort of become sort of encrusted or armored, an armoring to be able to feel in a very deep way. And again, I'm not labeling this physical, emotional, or psychological, but just this field of feeling. And if we start to lose this capacity, we then need to or want to or develop habits around having to stimulate ourselves to feel something. So part of the practice, part of the depth of yoga is to be able to feel, just to simply feel. And then when we come into yoga asana, we have a larger palette. We have more options, whether we're going to go into something, specific, whether we're going to go into something we want to label pain, something we want to label blockage or constriction or resistance, and allow that to open up and to flow into just pure feeling. So I just want to, acknowledge that this is a great luxury. This is a great gift that we have to feel, and we want to continually be able to cultivate that. Good. So you can stay on your back. We're going to just start to move now a little bit, but you could push, if you have the legs up on a bolster, you can push it away. If you have something under your pelvis, you can elevate the hips and slip it out from under. And even I think what you have under your neck, if you do have something, let's take that out and just put the head flat on the floor. And then let's bend the knees and put the feet flat on the floor. And I'm going to just do a little something different here that I'd like you to maybe take a look at. Maybe I should be this way. But I think you could just follow this from my description. We'll see. So what I'm going to suggest is to take the left leg and put it up and over the right one. And so we're squeezing at the thighs. Yeah. So it's that look that if you're sitting having tea with someone, you would cross your legs. So it's not the foot on the knee. The thighs are squeezing together. They're not squozing. And then hopefully we have the left leg on top, and that's going to go to the left. We're going to use that weight. But before you do, I'm going to suggest, as we do in the half moon shape, just with the upper body, to bring the upper body over to the right as much as you can, keeping both shoulders on the floor. So you have a half crescent of the upper body, and then take the left arm and put it over the head to complete that half moon from the upper part of the body, and the back of the hand will be on the floor. And then we're going to take those legs with the left leg on the top and let it slowly drift over to the left. You may need to take that right foot and walk it a little over to the right just to make some more room in the hips. You can play with that. Yeah, so now we have a reclining twist with the left knee over the right, reclining into the lower back, and we have the upper body curving over to the right in that upper crescent half moon shape. The right arm can just relax. You can choose to look over at that right hand if you like. You can keep just the back of the head on the floor, or you could look over to the left. Where you put the head is really up to how you're feeling in the neck. So weight of that leg pulling into the lower back somewhere, left arm up and around, and upper body over to the right a little bit. This is a little unusual, but that's good. That's what because the whole of yin really is a little unusual. So just going back to this felt sense, going back to this body as a field of feeling. Very important that we don't attempt to bring any specificity to this, because I'm not trying to isolate this just to the visceral, somatic, physical sensations. Yes, so we can feel the threads of the body as sometimes being very physical, but we can also feel this field of feeling also encompasses that interesting pulsation between physical and emotional. When does a feeling start to morph into something emotional? When does a thought start to morph into something physical? So let's open and broaden and expand our capacity to feel, and let everything in. This is very inclusive. This is a very intelligent receptivity, yin yoga is. So we allow a felt sense of thoughts coming and going. We allow the way that feelings, emotions are able to pull in and relax out, and how the physical body is open to all of this. Good. So let's begin to undo this a bit. So good to bring those legs back up. I think it's good to bring them back up first, to get both feet on the floor, and then bring the upper body back to a straight spine instead of manipulating the weight of the torso while you're still in the twist. So do that, and then just allow the legs to relax out before we do the other side. Good. So let's set up for the other side. So we will then again put both feet on the floor. This time we'll bring that right leg up and over, twist at the thighs. Let's keep it here. And I'm going to just bring my body, scooch my upper body over just as far as feels okay. We want to keep the right shoulder on the floor, so we're not going to roll over to the left side. And then you can bring the right arm up and over your head, so the back of the hand is on the floor. And then when you feel ready, we're just going to let that whole, both of those legs twisted up, go over to the right. And then it would be that left foot that you may or may not. I always need to just kind of walk it over to the left. It kind of makes some more room in my hips. Make any little micro adjustments that you feel are necessary, and we will enjoy this possibly awkward, unusual position. So when I put out this interesting inquiry of where do you stop, where does not you begin? So this ties in to starting to explore firsthand this amorphous morphing, if that's even a phrase, this sort of vagueness between the shifting and blending of physical, emotional, and mental, how the thoughts morph and we feel something, how the physicality evokes something mental, emotional. Because the fundamental exploration of our yoga is, who are you? So we don't want a theory. We don't want a philosophy. We want to start to get into it directly. So this is all based on direct firsthand experience. What is that thought? What is its relationship to that emotion? What is that emotion? What is that relationship to this field of feeling? And what is that boundary, that place where what I call me and not me, where is that demarcation line? Where does that contract and expand? So this is the fundamental exploration of what yoga is offering us. Good. So once again, let's bring the knees up. Untwist the legs. Have both feet on the floor. And then when you have both feet on the floor, you're stable. Then you can bring the upper body back. So the spine is straight and you can let the legs relax out. So what I would like to do from here is I would like to do what we call in the yin world a snail pose. It's a forward bend technically. And what we're simply going to do, for those of you that have no restriction to do this, but be very careful. I do notice, I used to notice when we were in class that there's a tendency sometimes to want to swing the legs up and over. I would avoid that, especially after that strange twist. We just really want to be very respectful of the muscles. So if you're able to come into this pose, it's best to put the hands on the floor and then support yourself. If you need to transfer the hands to the hips, and whatever your depth is, you could leave the hands on the hips. We want to bend the knees in this particular case so we don't elongate the lower back muscles, and then come as far as possible so the knees are coming on either side of the head. You can then keep the hands on the hips, relax the hands out, or you can interlock your fingers and bring the shoulders together. So if you're not able to directly go into that without support, you could use a large bolster or some pillows. So I like to show this just because of the importance of this pose for your endocrine health. So you can start this pose moving towards it by elevating the pelvis, and this already starts to bring you into it. So however then far you can come with the support on the hips, it's really worth it to do this, yeah? So let's not go into it yet. I just want to time it so we're all doing it together, unless you're already in it and you want to stay. But it's a little tricky to breathe, and it has a lot of muscular tension. So I usually keep it to a very specific time. So if you're ready, let's come on up and over into this lovely position. And this is also an amazingly beautiful place to explore tightness, restriction, a contraction of the respiratory diaphragm. So just make sure you're breathing a tiny bit so you don't begin to struggle or panic. And then just try to relax into it, breathe. And I always just like to remind myself that it is amazingly therapeutic for the endocrine system, not to mention the respiratory diaphragm, although I think I just did mention the respiratory diaphragm. Good. So let's relax out of it. So just roll down. If you have your pelvis on a bolster or some support, let's keep it there. We're going to just do it one more time. Good. So if you're ready, let's go back into it. So again, just coming to what's available to you. The depth is never really the relevant aspect. It's just the whatever the posture itself is evoking. So let go of right or wrong or deep or aesthetic, and just feel it. Just stay with this sense of the body, the posture, the breath as a field of feeling. We're not really concerned with the specifics. The specifics are, taking care of themselves or right under the skin. Relax, little breaths. Try to just soften into it. If you begin to struggle, withdraw just a tiny bit, find just the right place, and just really accept this compression. This is therapeutic compression. And then let's release, please. And just lie down and we'll take a bit of a rest here. And I just want to mention, since we just did the snail pose, and I always emphasize its importance therapeutically, it's sort of the difference between, having a dedicated practice or coming to class or watching the videos, and also just maintaining a sense of well-being. So it's very, very good for our sense of well-being to just do some of these things, out of context. We don't have to, start our day, end our day, and have just a limited time to do our yoga, and that's it. We can really start to listen to the body at the level where we can take 5 or 10 minutes even and just incorporate something in and just keep this felt sense alive and keep this felt sense deepening. So I just want to share with you 5 things that have sort of been coming to me that I have been sort of doing throughout the day, or at least making sure at least I do do daily. And this is just really to cultivate and maintain just a general sense of well-being. And the first thing is to do the snail pose every day. Lovely to do when you first wake up, lovely to do anytime, really, before bed. The other thing is to take the time to balance on one foot with your eyes closed, and then switch to the other foot. So we start with eyes open, one foot, find our balance, and then close our eyes. I'm not going to go into the details, but I recommend that you investigate a little bit the vestibular system and how it relates to your posture, your gait, your spatial orientation, and your sense of balance, especially if you decide to age. It's a very important thing to keep the vestibular system, that labyrinth of the inner ear, healthy. So every single day, balance on one foot, close your eyes. Try to empty your lungs at least 2 or 3 times a day. Good thing to do first thing in the morning and right before bed, but an exhalation beyond what you even think is possible. Do 2 or 3 of them, empty the stale prana out of the bottom of the lungs and let fresh oxygen come in. Always drink more water. About 6 months ago, I decided to double my water intake. That turned out to be a little bit too much, but I backed off. Just, you'll find what's right for you, but I think most of us can drink more water. And then make sure that you take the time to explore and cultivate and really understand what self-love is. Yeah, so we can, all of us have our process and our practices, and we have elements of self-improvement that we're attracted to. But to take the time every day and just quiet down and breathe and relax and make sure that you really are understanding this, what this actually is, self-love, cultivating it and maintaining it, because it affects us on a cellular level, and it affects our relationship to others and the world. And I don't necessarily mean self-love in a self-help kind of way, something that it really is beyond language. We know it. It's just it's a compassion for ourselves. It's a way to be with ourselves and accept right where we are, knowing that we're doing our very best and being open to guidance and support and just letting it be okay. It's a lovely thing to cultivate. And you could do it with a glass of water. Okay, so let's come on up. And whatever bolstering you have that will replicate the big bolster. I don't have my bolsters with me, so I'm using these lovely pillows. Yeah, I could use one for this, like this height. If you wanted to use a second one, yeah, let's use, if you have something a little higher, because if I had the big bolster, this compresses like the big bolster doesn't. So I'm just trying to approximate that larger bolster. And you can just put this in front of you. And then to get started, we're going to take the right leg and bring it in front. And we're going to come into an open square position. So then we'll take the right leg and put it in front as well. I got a hold of my towel because I like to soften for the ankle, not to elevate it. We're going to use the bolsters to elevate it when we're done with this. So just so it's nice and soft. And open square truly means open. So you can adjust the hips and the knees and however angle them that you would like. Yep. And then coming forward, let's come forward now by relaxing the shoulders and really just relaxing the lower back. Try not to go past 5 or 6 threads of tightness and think, okay, I'm deep now, this is where I stop. Let those little threads of tightness slow you down so you can actually feel them. And then as you feel them, they may want you to stay there and explore, or they may then say, okay, let's relax and go a little bit deeper. Relax the shoulders and the neck and just sink into this. If you want that bolstering to support the arms, if your upper torso feels like it's too much weight drawing into knees and hips and lower back, use whatever support you need. And allow yourself to feel this, this indescribable pulsation between yourself, your felt sense as the micro and the macro. No need to put words to it, no need to put imagery to it. It's a felt sense. This is the beauty and the mystery of pulsation. It contracts and we can't hold on to the contraction because it's then opening to an expansion. We can't hold on to the expansion because it's then contracting back in. The micro doesn't stay micro. It allows the macro. The macro doesn't stay the macro. It comes back into the micro. But we can feel it. Good. So let us come on up from here. And this is where I would like to recommend the larger bolstering or the pillows that you might have. So we're going to bring those in front now and take that right leg. And this looks huge, but they're not as big as they look. And then they sink in. So it's just a nice support. And I like to get most of the leg on here. Sometimes if it's just the foot, it angles the hip down. So this is intentional to get this right femur supported, but also angled. So it just changes the dynamic of hip and SI joint and the pelvis. So right back into the same forward bend. Now we just have brought it up a bit and supported it. And again, take your time with this. These are, fibers and threads, however you want to describe them. Basically, muscles are just, tubes of fascia filled with proteins. So we're never going to really work exclusively with muscle. We're always compressing into these tubes of fascia, and then they allow the muscles to breathe or elongate, however you want to say it. So it's always myofascial, and we cannot separate them at this level. So we just feel it. Forget about the descriptions and just allow just really allowing the posture ultimately to just reveal itself in whatever way you're receptive to that. So it's never just the posture. It's never just the posture and then what it evokes physically. It's also what you are receptive to. So I'm always encouraging you to be cultivating a very effortless receptivity. And that's just lovely imagery. I just want to say that again, that muscles are tubes of fascia filled with proteins, and pretty much everywhere in the body is tubes of fascia filled with something. So, it's just really, really important to have a practice where we can start to lean into the way that the fascia dehydrates, the way that it contracts, the way that it binds up. And certainly physically to feel more open and less restricted, but also we want and need the fluids of the body moving as freely as possible. We want the body communicating as sensitively as possible. This is all, the framework and the interlacing of the matrix of the fascia. And then what it's surrounding then gets to perform its function more efficiently and in a more healthy way. Good. So let's come on up from here. And let's remember that we had the right leg on top because we're going to eventually do the other side of this, but we're going to keep going with this. So uh, let's just take that bolster, put it aside. We're going to use it or the pillows and let both legs relax out. Yeah, since we just had those knees bent. So just let both legs relax out. And then we're going to keep the right leg out. Yeah, so just let the right leg stay relaxed out. And then we're going to take this left leg and bend it back. So if you're uncertain about bending the knee, wait and see what we're going to do. And this may or may not work for you. If it doesn't, I'll show something to modify it. But I want to use this bolstering to support this. So what we're going to do now, coming out of that forward bending, is we're going to take the bolster and or the pillows that you have and put them behind your back. And you see, I have the height of these two pillows. Whatever you have, you could bring it up even more. So you could bring it up as much as you need to support the relationship between the ankle, the knee, the quad, and the hip, and the backward bend. So it's all going to kind of come into some sort of equilibrium. So you may want a little less support or a little bit more. I'm recommending some. So the right leg stays out, and then tuck that bolstering in. So we want to support the lower back, and we'll just come into a supported half saddle pose. If this knee wants to come up, please let it. If it can relax down, you may want to adjust the ankle. You may need a little towel or something if your ankles are not nice and supple, and make sure you can relax the head back as well. Yeah, so just snuggle into this. Too deep, not right, make adjustments. If indeed you're like, no, for whatever reason, the knee is, no matter how high you wedge yourself up, then don't do that, obviously, and just bend it in this way. So you're getting a little bit of knee bend and you'll still get the backward bend. The only thing is at some point you have to find something to do for the quadriceps because it's just like the hamstring primary between knee and hips, but that's another story. Drifting into your body as a field of feeling. This feeling is simply presence. So micro, macro, contraction, expansion, basically, all information can be translated into yin and yang. So this becomes a relationship between, are we exploring something in a linear way or a non-linear way? Are we holding on to something with form and solidity, or are we allowing that form and solidity to soften into an undefinable felt sense? And this is just beautiful. This is really the poetry of being alive, the poetry of this field of sensation, because it's never either or. So this is very personal. It's very unique to you. And it's something that's always available, that we don't have to get stuck in our definition. We don't have to get stuck in our label. We can, trust that it is all changing and morphing, and that in some way, this breath that we have, this intelligence of the organism of the body itself, is really what's guiding us. And just even the brain itself, when we were doing that earlier body scan, we came into the felt sense of the skull, but the brain is always changing, always evolving. It's a complex system. So this contraction and expansion, that it's not always about, or I guess what I'm really saying is, we want to be very, very sensitive in the difference between high level cognition and complex thought and experience itself. So this is why we have this open-ended yin morphing into yang and yang morphing into yin. And yoga is suggesting, go ahead and explore this at the level of what you consider you. Where is what you consider you solid and definable, and where does it then morph into something that you cannot define and it is not substantial? And just explore that, just be open to that. And as complex as the brain is, and as ever changing it's not set up to understand the fundamental nature of reality, is simply because you are the fundamental nature of reality. So brain is good. I love the brain. The brain is good. It basically keeps us from bumping into things, but it's not meant to go into this deeper nature that is vibrating and pulsating. It's a tool that we get to use. So the yoga is saying, know what you're exploring and what you're using to explore. Okay, so from here, I think the best way out of this, if there is a way out of this, I hope there is just to start to roll over to the right side. And if you have the knee bent back, it'll start to release a bit, and then just release it. Yeah, let it out, and then come back to what you have in whatever you had in for supporting the backward bend. Put the buttocks on the floor, let both legs relax out, and we'll just soften into this backward bend before we consider doing the other side. And, okay, maybe I should disclaimer here a bit. Possibly, our brains are uh, useful for a bit more than just to keep us bumping into things. So I don't mean to to minimize the importance of the brain, but at some level, if we broke it down, it's quite mysterious. But also, not to minimize, not bumping into things is a good thing too. So we want to, a complex thought and moving from point A to point B. These are all good things. Good. So we can come off of this now. So whatever depth of backward bend, still be mindful. Put your feet on the floor, roll off whatever you're resting on, and maybe curl on your side a bit and come into a little bit of a forward bend. And then we're going to do the whole thing on the other side. So just take your time. We'll take a few minutes here since that was, let's just rest now because that was lengthy forward bending. Just it was all lengthy. So just make yourself comfortable. You can stay curled on your side. You can lie flat, come into a child's pose, whatever feels best to restore here. And these tubes of fascia, they certainly have the range of gradation, depending on our traumas and our age and our sense of well-being. And this again, at a basic level is what's keeping everything hydrated, what's keeping everything connected, and what's keeping a vast network of hyper, I would even say quantum communication going on in your body. So it can go from, open and fluid and gel-like and in, pristine condition, and it can then start to solidify, and it can start to dehydrate, it can start to inflame, and it can also move into scar tissue. So the scar tissue is the extreme of this gradation. So that's what we're really working with when we feel these points and these places in the body that feel achy and stiff and out of place and dehydrated. At that level, this is what's happening. At the level of the communication, connectivity, and fluid, then not to mention that it meshes. And so it then starts to pull something out of place. So we have a complex misalignment, dehydration dynamic going on in the body. And these postures are meant to therapeutically move in, compress, and then move out and allow the structure of the fascia to start to realign and rehydrate. And not to mention, it's very cleansing at the level of moving out toxins and allowing fresh fluids to come into tissues and cells. So let's do the other side, please. So come on up. And So same thing on this side. We will bring this time the right leg in towards the body, and we'll bring the left leg will be in front and on top. And again, I always, for the open square, I recommend just a little softness for the ankle. Open it up in a good way. Make sure the hips are loose. And then we're not initiating, it seems like a forward bend. We would initiate by coming forward from the hips and the lower back. But in yin, we want to initiate from the upper spine. So if the upper spine relaxes, that relaxation can articulate through the spine and allow the mid and the lower. So feel the weight of the skull, the relaxation of the upper spine, kind of translating and articulating down to the hips. And take your time. Don't be concerned about depth. Don't fall into a habitual pattern of this is where I always go. Sometimes just a tiny bit of exploring your angle can make such a difference. And then we'll come forward and begin to relax. Try to be very, very sensitive with the discomfort. So the discomfort itself, it can certainly be an expression of this field of feeling. When discomfort starts to concentrate to a point of density where it's ow, bad, unsafe, that's no longer the field. That's then your body saying, I need something, help me, pay attention, let's readjust, let's allow this feeling of unsafety, this feeling of struggle, this feeling of ow, to relax back into the field. And so this is, again, this is unique. This is unique to you day to day, pose to pose. So we want to allow as much openness with the discomfort. We want the openness, the discomfort, the field of sensation, the emotions, the rhythm of your thinking to all be part of the field. And oftentimes, if something pulls us out of that field, it just needs to be addressed. It needs to be readjusted. Good. So let's come on up from here and let us continue. So this time we're taking some bolstering. I was using these two pillows. You could use pillows, blankets. You could use the big round bolster if you have one. And we'll put that left leg on top of this. And same forward bend, we'll just continue. We just change the angle of that left leg. And that really becomes the sort of the primary, skill of this practice. We don't have beginner or advanced because it's your body and you're approaching it. But the skill of this practice is not, depth or length of holding or any aesthetic. The skill of this practice is starting to listen to the sensation, every single sensation, as a movement of intelligence. So we're not following a guideline that's imposed from the outside, either from me or a book or even your past practice. What we're cultivating is how to listen to every sensation as a movement of intelligence. So we can then relax into this field, relax into what we're feeling, and not feel like we're in danger, not feel like we have to do something. But no, there's nothing to do. We're listening to this profound intelligence that is our body. And that's the practice. That's the playing of the edge. That's flirting with this discomfort. We're not setting a discomfort level. It's not between 0 and 10. You're flirting with how your body feels moment to moment. So 1 minute in, 2 minutes in, 3 minutes in, always changing. It's fluid. It's just a different way to be in the body, to be with the emotions and to be with the thinking. So we don't ever want to take the information we're receiving from this basically nonlinear system and translate it in a linear way. What we want to be able to do, what we're learning to do, is take the information we're receiving and allow it to float, if you will, to pulsate in the context of yin and yang, in the context of contraction and expansion, micro and macro. And this is the skill. This is the skill of the yoga. And the pose is just meant to give us a framework, give us a bit of refuge, give us a place to explore this. That's the primary exploration. Good. So let's come on up from here, if you will. So come on up. And we're going to do we're going to complete it the same way we did, but first we'll let both legs relax out. So this particular position can be done with no bolstering. I'm suggesting some bolstering. Either you want the bolstering to make it happen when you bend that right knee back. So this is when you would use, your bolster and blankets and whatever you have, or a bunch of pillows. But you could also do this and minimize this. So if I was going to minimize this and just use one, I still would like to have the support. It's still, I'm offering this as a supported position, not without, primarily because it changes the angle of the backward bend a bit. So that's what I'm after. So doing this with just minimal support is nice as well. So the left leg's extended out, the right knee bends back. Be careful with the ankle, and it does not need to be in this alignment. This is just my ankle. You could flare it out if you need to, if that works for your ankle and knee connection. You could put a little bit of a towel under there or something, and then just relax back into to the second side. This is a half saddle back, we call it. And if you do find yourself becoming, somewhat preoccupied with a cluster of sensations, concern or diagnosis, fine, don't judge that. That's very valid to, make mental notes, but also remember that you have the option to experience those sensations without the concern, without the diagnosis, and just see how that feels. What is the difference? This is what I was saying earlier. This allows you to move into the field of feeling, but not good or bad. You're just exploring. So the real yoga is to see how close you can get to it, see how deeply you can go to the center of whatever the experience is. And typically, the labeling, the story we begin to superimpose limits that depth, because the thought then triggers another thought, then triggers another thought. And you can see this for yourself, that once we start to think about something specifically in a relatively short amount of time, we're way, way off. We're in a very different place. This is just a natural way that the mind works. It just triggers something and triggers something, and a memory comes in and it triggers another thing. So, that's a layer, and nothing wrong with that layer. What we're attempting to do, however, is make a discernment between that layer and deepening layers of direct experience. And this often goes, also I would say, for meaning. So, often when we're questioning, what does this mean? This is simply that our attention is not making satisfying contact with what's happening in the present moment. So this is what we're attempting to do, whether it's meaning in our life, our relationships, our mind, our heart, our body. We're trying to have satisfying engagement with the present moment. And then the question of meaning is no longer relevant because it's inherent in what we're experiencing. And really, it's funny for me to say this with all my chattering, but really, silence is the language of our highest self. Everything else is just a secondary poor translation. So this is why none of my chattering is meant to be taken as information or hold on to. You just become sensitive. If something I share resonates with your body, vibrates with your body, just allow that. And it may come to you at another time to process it. It has a very nonlinear way of supporting us. So once again, let's roll off of this, and we're going to just roll away from the bent leg and not come all the way off if you can manage this. And let's release that bent leg. If it's bent, if it's just on the inside of the leg, you can straighten it. So we'll have both legs straight, and then snuggle back into that backward bend, whatever you were using for support, and we'll just stay here for a bit longer. And really, highest self is, at least in my current practice, is no longer really appropriate. I should just say self, that when we know the self, we know there is no higher or lower or up or down, good or bad even, just the nature of the self, the fundamental nature of reality of ourselves as consciousness. So I should say the language of the true self is one of silence, and everything else then is just translation. And just to add to that, so then that realization, that simple recognition of the self, of ourself as awareness, consciousness, it doesn't really matter the words, presence. So this then is the transcendence of the micro and the macro. This is the transcendence of the yin and the yang. The yin and the yang is an expression of that consciousness from a pure place. Then it plays the game. It plays the game of male and female and good and bad and sick and healthy and all of the games that we enjoy playing in duality. But when we then rest from or see the illusion of duality and rest in the nature of ourself with just pure beingness, not complicated, then the language then becomes stillness. It becomes inner peace, happiness, love, is silence. Good. So let's roll off of this. So you can just, again, roll onto either your side or lie flat. We'll take another rest since we finished this before we move on. So let us come on up, please. And again, I want to use some larger bolstering. So I will do this with my two lovely floral pillows here. And what I would like you to do is take your larger bolstering and put it about an arm's distance behind you. So we're going to put the hands on here and just let the legs be open to a kind of a medium width. So not a full extension of the hips. And two things I wanted to say. So if it's hamstring, if it's pelvic tilting, if it's lumbar, and you're restricted from going forward too much, and this feels like you just need a little bit of support, because we're going to do this after this. Two things to consider. One is you can sit up on the edge of something. Don't sit on something flat, because this will just keep the pelvis where it is. If you sit on the edge of a pillow or a blanket, it'll help to tilt the pelvis forward. So a lot of our forward bend restriction comes from the way that your pelvis is tilted. So that's the first thing you can do. The second thing that you can do is you can take a couple of towels or blankets and make two rolls. Or if you have, most people don't have two of the small bolsters, but something similar, and you can put a couple of rolls under the knee. So now we've tilted the pelvis forward, we've relieved some of the restriction of the hamstring, and this often helps a little bit more openness in coming forward. And then you can either come to your hands or put a bolster here when we come forward. So just a few options to explore that. And this is why, we really encourage a creative use of all these bolsterings and props, because it's not about anything other than what you're feeling. So be as supported as you can. So we'll leave the legs open like this, and we'll do that sitting in front of this bolstering at about an arm's distance. And then if you're able to interlock your fingers, we'll interlock the fingers and place them up on this bolstering. So just for some support. My back is relatively straight. If this is not working, you can just interlock the fingers behind the back. You could leave the arms open, put one or both arms, or you just put the arms, you could just lean on your hands. So whatever your range of motion allows there. So let's do that now. And also you could keep the wrists open, or you could close them up, which will kind of pull the scapula into the rhomboids. So let's do that now, and we'll time it very specifically. And then sometimes it's just enough. It's somewhat enjoyable to just sit and be still and let this field of feeling permeate and tingle and just experience this compression into these tubes of fascia. But other times you may want to just very slowly move the head. So your choice, and go at your own pace. The movement would be using as a baseline the chin, the bottom of the chin parallel to the floor. We'd let the chin go down, and then we'd let the chin go up to whatever feels safe. Coming back to baseline, we'd allow the chin to go towards the right shoulder, the chin to go towards the left shoulder. Coming back to chin parallel to the floor, we go left ear to left shoulder, right ear to right shoulder, but do it very, very slow and in a mindset of exploration and leaning and approaching, not forcing or pushing. This fascial system is not meant to be forced. Forcing it will cause more contraction. And if you're still moving your head, let's just bring it back to a nice straight spine. Bring the bottom of the chin parallel to the floor. And let's take a few deeper breaths here. So take an inhale breath. And at the end of the inhale, open your mouth wide, stretch the muscles of the face and the jaw. Slowly let the air out. And at the end of the exhalation, let the head just drop back down. And then one more time, we'll bring the chin up a bit and inhale very deeply and slowly. Go a little bit beyond what you think your present lung capacity is. And then at the end, hold it. Open the mouth wide, stretch, 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 and very slowly let the air come out just through a tight throat. Feel the eyes, the forehead, the chin, the throat, everything stretching. Let the head relax down. Let's release the arms, and with the legs open, angled out past the hips, let's come into the forward bend. So nice and easy, just drifting down slowly. exploring yourself as awareness. Awareness itself has no qualities. So the moment we focus that awareness into attention, we're focusing on qualities. These qualities then, again, no matter what they are, then fall into the realm of yin and yang. They fall into the realm of this divine theater that we're all playing our parts. And what yoga is saying is, let us have a recognition, let us rest back from these qualities, let us rest back from this play of hide and seek, where awareness gets so involved in the qualities, awareness gets so intermixed with the qualities, we believe that's what we are. So what yoga is saying is, let's take a rest from that. Let's relax back into this nature of awareness that we are, and have more of a choice, have more of a discernment to see, yes, I'm using my attention creatively. I'm playing my role creatively, but it's just a role. Do I like the role I'm playing? If I do, I keep playing it. If I don't, then I surrender to this pulsation of yin and yang and play the game. But awareness has no qualities. Very much it is like hide and seek. Yes, the divine theater, all of the Maya, the Leela, the game, but it's the hide and seek that we hide within the fabric of life and then try to find ourselves. And yoga is just, in a way, is a method, a technology to find that self, that awareness, that beingness, that's always right there. That's why it's hide and seek, because we're looking for something that we already are. In a way, it's quite beautiful when we let the fabric of concern and fear and life and death loosen a bit. It's just very beautiful to allow ourselves to appreciate the mystery of it all. Good. So let's come up from here, please. And instead of lying down for a rest, just kind of wiggle and do what you need. And what I would like you to do as we're resting, sitting up, is get something that's going to be a bit firm to elevate the pelvis and compress into the pelvis. So what I mean by that is just to kind of fold something. I mean, if you have a yoga block, that would work, and put maybe a blanket over it. I just don't have one here, but I'm not sure who has yoga blocks or not. So that's why I'm showing it with this. I'm using a big towel, and I'm wanting to fold it up so it's quite firm and a bit high. So certainly you can adjust the height and you can adjust the firmness depending on the sensitivity and the tightness in your pelvis. So if you have something like this ready to go, what I'm going to suggest is to just place the pelvis onto it. And actually, I'm going to give you a choice. I'm going to give you a second choice for this. Since we did the half saddle, I'm going to give you a choice of a full saddle. So two things here at the end. We can bring the pelvis up onto this little soft block, and just relax over it. Then the only real adjustment you need to make is to make sure it's not into the lower back. So if I go down, I feel a little lower back, so I have to bring it lower. So it's right in this sort of like, here's the pubic bone, and then down is the sacrum, and right about there. Yeah, so there's no lower back at all, especially at this height. So that would be the first choice. If you're interested in doing the half saddle, we did the half saddle. The full saddle is to sit between the heels. And so after the half saddle, we spend some time there. The knees may be like, no, we've done enough bending, or they may be open to go deeper. That's why I offer it now. And you could use support if you want support, either a low support, high support, no support. And we'll just come into this lovely, this is the deepest backward bend we have for, reestablishing the curve of that low spine. So your choice of either of those. And even if you don't quite fully understand, what I'm saying about this field of feeling, uh, that's probably good that you don't. We're not really meant to, but trust that your body does. So just allow yourself, if you feel like you're drawn to a certain kind of preoccupation or uh, fear, even uncertainty about what something you're feeling, see if you can just relax and open that, let that reverberate into this field. So feeling the body as this field of feeling in a much vaster field. And then what we get to also explore is that we cannot find any boundaries within these supposed discomforts. We think we can, we think we know, oh, it's right there. But the relaxation of that attention that's coming from awareness, we relax that attention and we see that the boundaries are just really something we have to superimpose. So this is a lovely way to give yourself some more somatic options of, oh yes, I'm right there, I feel it, I want to fix it or run away from it, or I want to question it, I want to intellectualize it, or I can just let it relax and soften back into the very fabric of this field of feeling. And there's just an incredible, ocean of information in this field. This is what we want to be available to. This is what we're listening to. The somatic intelligence of our bodies is something that we cannot comprehend. So if you're in the saddle backward bend, just stay there. If you have the, the pad under the pelvis and you would like to keep one leg extended out, doesn't matter which one, and bring the other foot and put it up and under the thigh of the extended leg, this is a really nice hip opener. So you just got to find that spot. You just take let's say you keep the right leg extended, bring that left foot up and in, put it under that right thigh, let that left knee relax back down, and you'll see it just kind of pulls in this very interesting kind of way. And I'll just leave that to you to do that, and then maybe a couple of minutes, and then do the other side and just go in and out of that if you'd like, or just keep the legs out and just keep relaxing. And I was talking a little bit earlier about this relationship of the fascia as being tubular, and proteins and various other things, filling that. And so we're really very fortunate, even though this approach to yoga has been around for thousands of years. The research into fascia is extremely recent. But one of the things that is really emerging is that most of our biochemical problems have a root in fascial restrictions at a cellular level. So we're, very interested, and we can often feel the restriction in the knee and the lumbar and the shoulder and, various anatomical points in the body. But to understand and to feel and to trust and to intuit that there's not a cell in the body that is not connected by fascia. And so when it restricts at the cellular level, this then reverberates and creates issues all the way up, you might say, from the microstructures to the larger structures of the body. So interesting to really cultivate a practice where we are therapeutically approaching the body in terms of just a basic sense of rehydration and realignment and release and opening. And again, you want to only use your direct experience as this guide. Anything pretty much that's not, that's taken, for any reason that's not based on your direct experience, eventually will become an obstacle. So yoga is very grounded in our capacity to not only have direct experience, but to ultimately more and more be satisfied with our engagement of direct experience, so we don't have to wander off to become entertained or entranced or addicted. Good. So let's, if you have the pad in the pelvis and you have one leg bent up under, let's straighten it. If you're in the full saddle supported or not, time to address those knees. So same like the half, I find it's really beneficial to roll over to one side a bit and release one. If try to avoid trying to come up and forward. This can be a little tricky for the core and the intrinsic muscles of the lower back. So either pose, just find your way out safely, and we'll come into a final shavasana for a bit and relax and integrate here. And I would imagine maybe the takeaway from this class is that the primary function of the brain is to keep us from bumping into things. Up to you to determine if I've oversimplified the function of the brain, but I'll just leave it at that. I've been fortunate to be able to spend time daily in the Atlantic Ocean. So I will just take this time to remind us that we are not a drop in the ocean. We are the ocean in a drop. And namaste.